For today's review, we are looking at the third figure in the Plastic Man build wave, and that of course is Aquaman. Now before I dive into talking about the accessories and of course the figure, as usual, let's take a quick look at the data profile card that is included. And as you can see, there is this beautiful comic book artwork of Aquaman in the front. Pretty cool. His real name is Arthur Curry, and it reads, the son of a lighthouse keeper and an Atlantean queen, Arthur Curry is the bridge between the surface world and his tumultuous realm of the sea. Monarch of the undersea realm of Atlantis and king of the seven seas, Aquaman is one of the most powerful DC superheroes commanding a kingdom that covers 3/4 of the Earth's surface, including all the creatures contained within. Arthur Curry came from humble beginnings, as most of his life was spent exiled from his home, unaware of his noble origins. When he finally took the throne as an adult, he became the most legendary king in Atlantean history. And that is a pretty good read-up on who Aquaman is as a character. And now, let's talk about the accessories that are included with this figure. He doesn't come with any accessories. He doesn't have his trident. He doesn't have any interchangeable hands. You just get the figure in this box. And in terms of the build pieces, you get the two regular arms for Plastic Man, which is pretty cool because in this case, since the last review video we looked at the Batman, he came with the animated arms, as I like to call them. If you don't want Plastic Man to be using his powers, well, you got these arms as swappable options where he can just be relaxing without using his powers at all. So that's pretty cool. And I think this is the first Build-A-Figure from the DC Multiverse wave from Mcfarlane Toys that has given this sort of option where you can swap the arms out. I don't remember any other one that can do this, so that is actually pretty cool. It would have been nice, though, if this Aquaman figure did come with a trident and, of course, a interchangeable hand where you can hold said trident, because this would have been a pretty badass looking figure if he had his trident, and of course, as you can see, that hook hand that he has on his left arm. That'll make a cool combo. But that's the unfortunate thing, is that they didn't do that. So, with that said, let's talk about the figure and the aesthetics. And as you can tell, this of course is the Platinum Chase version of the Aquaman figure. I got very lucky last year with my pre-order with this figure, where I was able to receive the Chase version of it. I don't remember what the regular one looks like in terms of the color of his pants. I just remember that the regular version has all silver up here for his torso area. In terms of the pants, I don't remember the colors. So, but mainly it's just a different color. And I did not buy the regular version because I just felt that it was really unnecessary since I already got this one right here. And I preferred this more than the regular one because I actually like the colors to the Platinum one more. So this was pretty lucky to be able to score. And let's start with the head sculpt when it comes to the aesthetics of this figure. So let's talk about this first. That is a really cool head sculpt for Aquaman. I like the way it came out. You do have his long hair that you can see the sculpted strands of, which is pretty good. I like the flesh color that they use for the skin tone because it looks more realistic than the Endless Winter version, where I felt that this was way too bright. And also, it didn't really match up with his skin tone and his neck area. So it just looked a little bit too, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but I just don't like the fact that it was so bright because, you know, it just seems kind of unrealistic. But hey, depends on your preference on which one you like, right? In terms of the design of the figure. But I prefer this one more. I actually like the skin tone on this figure because it just works. And of course, his beard is sculpted in a very nice way, and it's different from the Endless Winter version. Let me just bring that back in. As you can see, the way that his beard is sculpted, he has more beard going on. So, yeah. And he doesn't have the side eyes like the Endless Winter one does, so that's cool. He's actually just looking straight at you. In terms of his expression, though, I can't really tell if he's, like, serious or maybe he's just calm. But, you know, an alternate head sculpt would have been cool to have as well, actually, now thinking about it. So, yeah, not a bad head sculpt. In terms of his armor piece down here, There is sculpt details on it, but there's no other color. It's just all black, and I think it's like that because the source material here, as you can see, is the same sort of color, but you can call this cell shading if you want to. So if you're a customizer, you could probably add some like bright areas onto it to make it stand out if you want to, but I think it's fine leaving it all black like this because it does work. And of course, Aquaman is a very muscular individual, so I do like the fact that you do see his abs sculpted down here, so that's really nice. Now, I don't know if this top part is a reuse of another figure in terms of the body buck and the arms, but I think all of this might be new. I could be wrong. Because down here in the legs, right, this piece right here and the legs, they are definitely reused from the previous figures because it's literally the same exact legs. So, and in terms of the details down here, I do like this color green. I like the brightness of it. And of course, you can see the scales are just like printed on. And unfortunately for my copy, well, they didn't really do a good job with this side of the leg because you can see how there's like an imprint right there. I don't know if that's supposed to be covered up or this was supposed to be moved a little bit more. But on this side, it's like a little bit cleaner. So, don't know what happened there exactly, but it would have been better if these were sculpted because having them printed on is just, it's kind of lazy looking, right? Especially since we've seen one other figure have sculpt details on his legs when it comes to his design, which I will bring in later when we do comparisons. So, yeah. And of course, he does have his fin for his, leg area down here. And that's basically the aesthetics with his costume. There's really nothing else on here in terms of details. It's pretty much just a flat color. And yeah, not bad. Now, in terms of this side of the arm, you do have this sort of weapon that he has. I don't exactly know what to call this. I call it a hook, like a pirate hand or something, because that's what it looks like. And the only time I've ever seen this version of Aquaman with this sort of hand was from Justice League, the animated series. Because there was an episode where I think it was Ocean Master. He came back and sorted for revenge or something. I sorted for revenge. No, he wanted to take the throne from Aquaman in this, like, I guess in this version, it's a pre-established that Aquaman is already the king. So, Ocean Master was like, I want to take the throne. And then he pretty much tied Aquaman to some sort of rock, and the chain was so hard to pull out that he had to basically cut off his hand. Yeah. And that's why he ended up having this. So I don't know if that's the same thing in the comics from where this version originates from, where he lost his left hand because of that exact reason. But yeah, he got the hook hand right there. So there's that. And that is pretty much everything I can say about this figure because, it's good enough, right? It's a good Aquaman figure. I think they did a good job. Oh, one last thing. And of course, his belt right here does have some details as well. So pretty good. And now, let's talk about the articulation on this figure. So, with the longer hair, of course, as usual, you're not going to get much in terms of looking up with this figure, right? So, that's a no-go. In terms of looking down, he can look down pretty freaking good. So, there's that. In terms of turning his head, well, seems pretty good there. In terms of tilting his head, there's that option as well. It's only just looking up that he can't exactly do. In terms of his arms, they do spread out into a T-pose, as you can see. And that's as high as it's going to go when it comes to spreading out like that. In terms of swinging back and forth, he does have that option. He also has double jointed in the arms, right? He also has the bicep swivel up here, as you can see. And he has swivel in the hands. And of course, he does have articulation in the wrists, and that does swivel as well. As for this arm, which is a little bit different, this part right here does not... Oh, wait, actually, it does swivel. Oh, it does swivel. Okay, I did not realize it can swivel. That's actually pretty cool that it can. I've never tested that until now. Surprisingly, I had this figure for over a year now, and I've never tested that. Okay, that is actually cool that this could swivel. So that is a plus right there. So yeah, that is pretty cool. And of course, the same articulation as the other arm. In terms of his upper torso, he does have a good rotation, as you can see. Really good range of movement. As for leaning forward, he actually can lean forward a little bit with the upper torso, so that's pretty good. In terms of leaning back, he can lean back a lot, so that's good. In terms of his waist, there is a swivel down here. As you can see, there is a way to lean forward a little bit, which is not too bad. There is a way to lean back, also not too bad. But as you can see, there's a little gap right there. So if you are moving this figure, that is a problem that you have to deal with. So in terms of his legs, in terms of doing a split, not a full split, but that is still pretty good right there. Full spread, so that's pretty good. In terms of kicking, wow, this figure can actually kick pretty high. Oh, that's actually pretty good. So I like that. So kicking outward, not too bad. So there's that. In terms of double jointed legs, he does have that as well. But of course, on my copy, it's a little bit stiff. So, in these cases, heat it up with a hairdryer or use hot water. In terms of the feet articulation, as you can see, it does move. There's a swivel down here. And of course, toe articulation. And does this figure have thigh swivels? No, it doesn't move. On my copy, it does not. Maybe if I heat the upper part up, maybe it can move. I'm not too sure. But usually the fix to this is if you pop the legs off, you should be able to get the joint to move if you find a way to loosen it. So, but from just the way it is, no thigh swivels. All right, and that is pretty much the articulation for this figure. And now it's time to do some articulation. And let's bring in some other Aquaman figures that I have in my collection. So, of course, let's start off with the Endless Winter version. As you can see right here, it doesn't want to stand. Come on, don't fall over. There you go. Okay. As you can see, there is quite a difference between these two figures in terms of the colors and, of course, what he's wearing. Now, I prefer this costume more than, of course, this one, even though I like it. In terms of like an Aquaman on my Justice League shelf, I still prefer the more classic, traditional costume, right? But in this case, I'm not a fan of the head sculpt with the Endless Winter one because the side eyes really just makes this figure hard to pose in the shelf because he's always looking off to the side. Now, if I do some modifications, which I probably could, if I painted that neck skin tone to match up with this particular skin tone, I could probably do some sort of kit bash here where I take this body buck, swap it over with this head on top of it, and it could probably be the definitive Aquaman on my shelf when it comes to the comic book version, right? So I could probably do that, but I'm not going to because I don't have a spare version of this figure. So, and I like to keep some of my figures intact in this case. I have never done any kit bashes outside of the few that I have duplicates of. So, if I do end up getting a duplicate of this figure one day, which if it's still possible, I think it is, then I'll probably make that happen. So, okay, there's this one. And of course, here he is next to the yelling, angry face Aquaman from the Flashpoint Build-A-Figure wave. So, yeah, it's the same exact body buck as the Endless Winter one. Same legs, everything's the same. Just the difference here is the head sculpt. And as you can see, he's very angry. He has short hair. He looks like a military sergeant more than he does in Aquaman. And just having that expression 24/7 is just not good for one's health, right? He's very pissed off. So, do these two work together? I guess you can say they can. I don't know, but there's that. And I guess I would say that this is probably the one I would use for my Justice League shelf in the current moment. It would probably be, of course, the Page Puncher one. Now, this figure does not want to stand for some freaking reason, so I'm just going to hold on to this. But as you can see, the design is very different, but this one has a lot of texture work done to the figure, right? As you can see with the legs down here and everything. So this one is probably the coolest one that they have put out. And also the Triton that came with this figure is just such a badass Triton as well. So there are the differences between these two. And of course, now let's do some comparisons with some of his wave mates. So of course, here he is next to the blue Superman. There you go. Here he is next to Batman. And yeah, these two could probably work together more than the Superman figure, of course. Again, I've said this in the last video and even before that, this Superman just doesn't really fit in with most of the other regular comic book looking superheroes in my shelf. He just stands out way too much. So, and last but not least, here he is next to the Silver Age Superman figure, which I guess, yeah, you can make this work as well. So, all right, and that is all the comparisons that we're going to do for this review. And if you found today's review for Aquaman enjoyable, do give this video a like. If you want to subscribe to the channel for more action figure content and whatever else I do on here, you can. You don't have to. In the end of the day, I make these videos for fun. And with that said, take care and I will see you in the next video.